Okay, we're back in the map. I finished the AI graph. Let me just show you how to check that's everywhere. I'm going to fly looking down, see if all these guys are nicely connected. And, everywhere I go, even through the buildings, even here, there's one place that was a problem. I can't make these connect, but they're connected on the other ends, so AI can walk through there just like we can. Other places inside buildings, I finished the hangars. Like this one I didn't do yet. See, I found a hole. This would have been bad. Finish this off. Just to have even this building accessible to the AI. And back here, all that. Well, maybe. Can they get in here? Let's see. Yep. Do this as an accessible part through here. Alright, so this should be all. And the next step would be to export the AI graph to get that out of the way if you never want to change it again. But for now, that's good enough. What I really want to show this time is save this, resume the area menu. Areas, I usually start out where the spawn location is, which is here. And I'm going to just show you the areas that you need to use my scripting if you want to make a random map. I'm going to use the proper naming convention and tell you what they do. The very first ones, there's 3 of them, are my difficulty random, the triggers that set the difficulty of the map. First one, you right click and it comes up with the pre-named area 1. It will name them automatically, but I have custom naming because I use way more areas than they originally anticipated being part of a map script. But let's just stick to the standards, then you don't have to worry about editing the script. Okay, next step after you right click is to actually create a shape. That word down here, let me just angle it so you can read that better. It says shapes. Each area can be more than one shape. A shape is basically a box that looks like the zones that we had earlier on to define Zulu and spawn location. There's right now, if you go back to multiplayer, that box is still here. You just don't see it in this mode. This is unrelated to areas. Areas are triggers in the map to do things when humans walk through areas or vehicles drive through areas. They trigger events. So the first event that I want to trigger is deciding how many players have joined the map. So I'm going to draw a box around these, and the associated name for each difficulty level has to do with how many players I want to see. Oops, I don't like capital letters. This thing is actually case sensitive. Do everything in lowercase in there. Never use upper. Trigger 1. At least one player. It'll happen. Something has to happen even if you're alone on the map. Just one shape here because that box is big enough to cover the area where anybody spawns. Do that again with another box. Right click, left mouse button, drag a shape, name the shape, trigger 7. Let's make it a 7 player. I always call it 7 even if I change the number to a different value because it has nothing to do with the name of the zone, how many it counts. That's part of the script. The script defines how many players get counted for this trigger. And we'll do a third one for 3 difficulty levels and call it trigger 11 because most of the time it is the highest difficulty. But when I test, I actually change all of them to 1 player, so they always activate as if 11 players are there. So what happens in the map is when people spawn, trigger 1 immediately triggers something if just 1 player is there. Up to 6 players, trigger 7 doesn't trigger because it's being told in the script, count at least 7 players before you do something. You hit 7 plus, trigger 1 is already triggered, trigger 7 goes on top of that. And then the same thing with 11. Once you have 10 players, still only 2 zones trigger, 2 of these areas trigger. The third one will come on top once you have 11 players. So that's the third level that'll trigger, and they're additive. That's how the difficulty grows. Each of them is about equal, but you don't get 3 difficulty levels unless you hack the script for testing. So you gotta have a lot of players to see the high difficulty, or I make a different version of the map where I disable that, and then they're called the respawn maps. So we have the first 3 areas here that the script is gonna look for and do something about. Now, once they do that, these initial script steps, I need to actually have zones that activate enemies and zones that decide what level of panhard I'm going to be running. And that's done similarly to this trigger. I have a set of MG triggers, I call them, because it also triggers the level of how many of these heavy weapons spawn. And it's the same naming convention, but you don't want to do it here where the AI is, where the humans spawn. You want to do it further down the trail where everybody has to go at some point, which would be about here, and name them the same way. I call it MG trigger 1. That's what the script is looking for. It can be in the same place because only one of these will be active when somebody gets there. So these work very differently. MG trigger 7, they don't actually count the player. They're just secondary activators based on what gets counted. Again, just a script related thing. Don't really have to worry about why they're there. They just have to be in a particular place away from the original spawn, so there's about 2-3 seconds of time for the game to calculate how many players and what to do with these 3 zones, which one to activate. Once it activates the appropriate one, further things down the trail match the difficulty then. So that's that. That's the entire initial game spawn kind of thing. From here on, it's just event triggers that spawn AI and vehicles. The first AI trigger actually sits right here where everybody is. And since I have 3 for each difficulty level, they also are numbered. And I call these area 010. Why 010? Because there's a second one in the same place that gets activated with trigger 7 in case there's 7 players. Area 011, and another one for the highest difficulty, area 012. Why did it choose this naming convention with the 0? Well, sometimes there's more than 10 of these on a map, so you go in the hundreds and it keeps it nicely sorted. And why just 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 0? Well, if I ever want to make a map that adjusts for every single player joining, I can do 01, 02, 03, 04 up to, well, I guess 09. So I can do 9 levels of difficulty instead of just 3, but when I initially did that, 3 sounded good, and so far 3 has been good. Another thing before time runs out, well, let's just do the next one here. Okay, so right now, picking the location of these is kind of important because you want to make sure everybody must walk through them, otherwise nothing happens. So these guys spawn something that probably will happen in front of them in the building. And then they all must go through the exit of the building. So why don't we put the next trigger just a little bit before we get out of the building so stuff outside is already active. How about here? Right click, draw a box before everybody gets to the door. That will be the second area, area 020. And for each level, not another one, 021 and 022. Now we have the second human trigger, AI trigger for bots enabled. Now, where do we want the first panhards to come in? They could come in before we even get out of the building. So, I like to stagger these things so they don't all happen at the same time to avoid lag. Everybody's going to have to walk through this corner of the building. So why not here, my first panhard trigger? And the same way, panhard 010, panhard 011, and the third one is panhard 012. So once we walk in there, one of these will be activated based on this MG trigger stagger here, and walking in here, the script will activate a randomizer that picks various different panhard permutations and will send them on the road from somewhere else on the map. They don't even exist yet, and we'll send them to us. So we'll continue with this in a minute. I'm going to take a pause here and put the rest of them on the map, and then we'll get back to the AI. Save that.